Hello everyone, myself Dr. Prashna Samadar. In the present presentation, I'm going to deal with the topic of concept of citizenship in immigration. The prerequisites for this particular presentation is the Constitution, Chapter 2, Article 5 to 11. Then the Citizenship Act 1955, the related amendments to the Citizenship Act, namely in 1986, 92, 2003, 2005, 2015, and 2019. These are some of the bold amendments which has happened in the Citizenship Original Act of the Citizenship 1955. Then the Immigrants Expulsion from Assam Act 1950, because that also deals with certain part of the Citizenship Act and the concept of citizenship which is being practiced in India, and also Assam Accord 1985. The very objectives for with which this presentation has been prepared is to understand the basic concept of citizenship, to understand the related theories of citizenship, to understand the relationship of citizenship with immigration, and to contextualize the importance of citizenship in the present days or in the present times. The topics which have been broadly covered in this presentation are the definition of citizenship, components of citizenship, theories of citizenship, and relationship of citizenship with immigration. Now, while we take an attempt to understand the concept of citizenship, firstly, we have to be very clear that the concept of citizenship has been one of the oldest topic from the times when the states have started getting legally conceptualized, or the concept of state has been legally got its existence. However, even before that, when there were kingships or there were emperors who used to rule their subjects, the concept of citizenship was present. Although it was not prevalent along with the term itself called citizenship, because officially the term called citizenship has been coined much later. But the practice, that is the social membership or the civil or political membership of an individual in his or her state, was very much common and very much there, in spite of the fact that the term citizenship in itself was not existing. So we have to understand this, that the concept is itself is very ancient. However, the acceptance or the recognition of the concept has not been so ancient as it the system which is existing. So it has been conceptualized as something called citizenship much later than the times when it has been practiced. So the generic definition of the state citizenship has to be understood. So citizenship is something, a relationship of an individual with a state to which the individual owes allegiance and in turn is entitled to its protection. Now, whenever we say that individual owes its allegiance means what? Now, shows its allegiance means, suppose I am an Indian. How I can say that I am an Indian? I can say because I am abiding all the rules and regulations which the Indian Constitution enshrines on us as fundamental duty. And at the same time, I am entitled to all those rights which, in the name of fundamental rights, is available to me as a citizen. Now, how I can say that I'm a citizen? Because I represent my nation wherever I go. That is one of my basic identities. If I have no such identity, if I can't say that a state is a particular X state or Y state is that from where I belong to, then obviously my citizenship would be questioned. That means I don't have the social, political, civil, or moral membership of a state. Now, state is all the states around this globe. State, as I have said in my previous slides, also means a nation under international law. A state is a political entity, and the subjects of the state are the citizens of the state or the individuals who are residing in the state. So there has to be some relationship of each individuals with his or her state, wherever they are staying, or wherever they have taken birth, or they are residing permanently from ages. So that particular link or that particular relationship is known as citizenship. Okay. The status of being a citizen. So citizenship, because we know that there is a relationship. So that relationship has been nomenclatured. A citizen shares a relationship with a state, and that relationship is known as citizenship. The quality of an individual's response to a membership in a community. It is individuals response. If as I have said earlier also, that if I don't consider, or if any state don't consider me as a citizen of its own, and none of the state around this globe consider me as a citizen of that particular entity, then I would be called as a person without any citizenship rights. And if I don't have any citizenship rights, then obviously I don't have any duty to perform also. So I'll not be responsible for any state around the globe. But that is, of course, not good for me at the end of the day, because state and individual shares a give and take relationship. We get a protection from the state, we get set of rights from the state, but at the same time we get protection in the manner that obviously against any kind of discrimination or illegal detention or any kind of illegal or immoral thing which may happen, and state protects or prohibits it from happening. That, so that is way citizenship is very important, not only for the state for recognizing their individual, but on the individual front also, to get protection and other privileges from that particular state. Now, after getting clarified with the generic definition of the citizenship, now we should have a look into the legal conceptualization of citizenship. So basically, it's a legal link between an individual and a state or territory, as a result of which the individual is entitled to certain protection, rights, and privileges, and subject to certain obligation and allegiance. Moreover, a citizen is a person who, by place of birth, nationality of one or both parents, or naturalization, is granted full rights and responsibilities as a member of a nation or political community. However, it is a very surprising fact that Citizenship Act 1955 has not directly taken any effort to define what is citizenship. They have laid down the criteria by which a person can acquire citizenship, or by the ways in which a person can be recognized as a citizen of India. But while if we want to find out a particular comprehensive definition of citizenship in the particular act called Citizenship Act 1955, will not be able to find out any definition, because no definition as such has been framed like that. Now, as I have said in my second or third slide, that citizenship is not a very modern concept. It's a very ancient concept. However, the term citizenship has although been coined very recently, I would say maybe 100 years ago, which is a very recent development. But the concept in itself was in existence from a long time, from the time when civilized civilizations like Romans and Athens uh, and all these European culture was getting developed. Citizenship was very much there. And in Indian context, in Indian subcontext also, Asian subcontext also, when the kingship used to happen, when emperors used to rule their state, citizenship was still there, because individuals were responsible to their own king. They were subjected to their own king. They were questionable. They can be questioned by their own king, and they were has to be accountable to them. So this nature of accountability or relationship of accountability of an individual with his or her state was is not a very new concept. However, the term itself is comparatively new. So there are many theories which the thinkers have developed, or you can say they have tried to find out, or they have tried to draft these theories, while taking into consideration the ways in which, the variety of ways in which the concept of citizenship has been interpreted. So that is how we can see now in the present context, after coming into millennium and then even passing 20 years in the millennium, in the present times 2020, we can see that there can be two broad categorizations under which the theories may be divided. So these categorizations are namely traditional theories and modern theories. Now the traditional theory have again various theories. Some of the now the you can't actually say that these are the only theories which exist, because the array of theory is very wide. But those theories which I have found very, very important to be discussed, I have tried to include those theories in my slide. So the first theory goes like liberal concept of citizenship. Now, what is meant by liberal concept of citizenship is that citizenship something, is there some documentation which is required to prove that a particular individual is a member of a state? or it is sufficient that I have taken birth in some state and that actually gives me the right to say that I belong to this state. So the liberal theory of concept of citizenship says that as and when you take birth in a place. Of course, the time when you are taking birth, you are just a baby. You're innocent enough to understand. You're obviously not enough mature to understand what is meant by citizenship. So obviously, you will once you grow gradually, you will show allegiance to the vicinity you are growing to, and gradually when you become a man or you become a matured homo sapien, you gain age. Obviously your allegiance will be much inclined towards that place where you have taken birth, you have spent so many years, your parents are there, your family is there. So it is enough, it was a sufficient evidence to say that I have taken birth in this place, and by the virtue of taking birth in that place, a person automatically earns the citizenship of that place. This is a traditional theory because this theory dates back to those times when kingship was in practice, because there was no such kind of proof like voter ID card or Aadhaar card, although Aadhaar is not a proof of citizenship rights, but still it shows the membership of a particular state in some way or the other. So there were no such documentation. So back those days it was considered that if you were taking birth in this particular place, in a particular place, and your family down the ages is residing in the same place, by the virtue of taking birth in that place ab initio, or I mean automatically you gains the citizenship of that place, and that is what is meant by liberal concept of citizenship. Now literal concept of citizenship means if you have a particular proof, you need to have a particular proof to prove that I am a citizen of that place. The proof may be something, some official documentation, some order which we have received from the state, or some notification in the gazette which says that I as an X individual is the citizen of the state. There has to be some proof which is tangible, which can be seen, which is visible, so that relationship can be showed to anyone, like this is my candidature of this particular state or this particular place. So that is meant by literal concept of citizenship, and uh, unfortunately, this is the concept of citizenship which is being practiced in lion's share of the maximum of the states around the globe presently. And the third concept which I have found is very important to understand is relative concept of citizenship. Now, what is relative concept of? It's a combination of liberal and literal concept of citizenship. It says that it is because human rights itself, the Magna Carta of Human Rights, that is UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, truly negates the fact that if you don't have any proof, that means if you are an official stateless person, you don't have a citizenship, but by the virtue of the fact that you are an individual, you have taken birth, some of the other state where you are staying, even where you have taken refuge, must show some degree of allegiance towards you, must show some degree of protectiveness towards you. That is what international law says. International law really looks up with very high eyes to those people or to those states who give protection to these kind of vulnerable groups. So that should be, again, that is very much important to understand that citizenship, literal practice of citizenship arises various kind of bottlenecks for those people who have questionable citizenship or who have questionable membership with any state with this globe. So that is what is relative concept of citizenship. It says that citizenship concept itself must be a amalgamation of literal and liberal theories. No, taking a single path may may arise with may crop up with various problems for the state itself and of course for the individuals. Now, with the passage of the time, with the development of human rights, with the development of various other factors, after the happening of two wars, many things has happened. So thereby we have cropped up various new and modern theories and the way or the lenses through which we see the concept of citizenship. So thereby we get two modern theories like a theory of global citizenship, citizenship and state community. Now, theory of global citizenship is something which many of the international thinkers are looking up to these days. They say that why to maintain citizenship and have different citizenship policies state-wise. Now, suppose we have so many states, we have 200 plus states, we have 300 plus states around the globe, and as many states we have that those many citizenship laws. So that should not happen, because that at the end of the day creates a problem for the individual who is traveling, create problems for the individual who itself is a subject of international law. So we must also take care of this, that because of the discrepancy of of the citizenship law from one state to other, there are many problems which one face. So that should not happen. Apart from the previous theories which we have discussed, there are a set of other two theories also which is worth mentioning. One is normative theory and another is empirical theory. So the normative theory tries to reflect the rights and duties which citizens ought to have in their state or the state through to which they show allegiance. And the empirical theory aims to describe the and explain how citizen came to possess those rights and duties. So rights and duties are of course a very important subject matter in terms of citizenship is concerned, uh, because there is some relationship which I have said previously is to show allegiance towards a particular community. So basically, the how you will show allegiance by performing some duty, and how the state will show allegiance by giving you certain rights. So that particular relationship must be enclosed or must be described properly. So that theory is known as normative theory and empirical theory. Now, there are certain important elements of citizenship. There are civil elements, there are political elements, social and economic elements. Civil elements means we get protection from illegal detention, we have set of fundamental rights. Like there are certain exceptional situations when even in spite of the fact that those situation prevails, we cannot get arrested. Okay, there are certain fundamental rights which we have whereby we can access our judicial system. So these are some of the civil rights which we have. We have right to vote. We have right to choose. Like suppose in India, which is a democratic country, we have a right to choose our own leader. We have a right to choose our own government. So we have adult franchisee. We have voting rights. So these are something civil rights. Political rights means we have a right to take our national identity outside our country. Whenever we'll be traveling outside, we get diplomatic protection from our country. That means suppose something happens, something wrong happens to us with us in a foreign land, then automatically some if we go to if we access our Indian embassy in that country, our country's embassy will give us protection, is ought to give us protection by the virtue of the fact that I'm an Indian citizen. So that is something called diplomatic protection. So obviously this is one of the very great cushion to those who visit, who crosses their own border and goes to foreign land. Then we have social elements of the citizenship. Social elements means suppose I am watching a match. uh, Normally what happens is to the team which your country, the team which represents your country, you show normal allegiance to that particular team. You show that when an Indian cricket team is in field playing, there are 99% chance that I as an Indian would end up supporting the Indian team, not the foreign team. So these are some social factors. Or otherwise also, the voter card we have, the Aadhaar card we have, the PAN card we have, all these are because we are citizens of this country. We have taken birth, or our parents also have ties with this country. So by the virtue of this fact, we get all of these social protection from our state. So it proves that we have a membership, and whenever it is required, we have that element of social security present with us. What is economic element of citizenship? Economic element also have relation to all those previous elements. If my identity is constricted, if my identity is questioned, if I don't have proper documents which proves that I am a citizen of any particular state altogether, then of course it will hamper my business, it will hamper my education, it will hamper my livelihood, and that is how obviously it is going to question the economic responsibility or economic liability of an individual. Now, there are types of citizenship, or you can say there are types, or there are ways in which citizenship can be adopted. So, it can be adopted by birth. At birth, it can be adopted. Okay, so at birth also there are two types by which we can adopt citizenship, or all the states around the world follow these two basic tenets of providing citizenship to those children who take birth in their land. One is jus sanguinis, and another is jus soli. Now, jus sanguinis means by blood. So blood means, like, suppose I have taken in India, like you, India follows citizenship at birth through jus sanguinis. That means if my parents are Indian, I can prove that they have also taken birth in India. They have all the documents which proves that they are Indian citizen, and I am born to those parents. Basically, previously, before amendments, when originally Citizenship Act was drafted, it was just father's identity which used to take into cognizance. But now it is either of the parents, and either of the parents have to be an Indian citizen, and the other can should not be an illegal immigrant as per Citizenship Act of India. So the present system is this. So basically, jus sanguinis means at birth it is being checked that whether the parents to whom you are birth are, or who have taken who, from whom you have taken birth, are also the citizens of that country or not. If they are the citizens of that country, then you very easily get the citizenship of that country through jus sanguinis. And jus soli means through soil. Just because of the fact that you have taken birth in that particular state, you will get the citizenship status of that state. So US, until recently in 2019, US has done some, has made some entries in the absolute clause of jus soli. Until 2019, they have an absolute clause of jus soli. That means by the virtue of the factor that somebody takes birth in the land of USA, will become a US citizen, will become a green card holder. But in 2019, there has been some provisions which has been made included, and now the absolute enjoyment of jus soli is no more there in US also. But the principle says that by the virtue of the fact that you have taken birth in that soil, you will be considered as a citizen of that particular state. Now, beyond birth, there are other processes through which citizenship can be gained. One is naturalization. Now, naturalization means I have taken birth in X country. Suppose I have taken birth in India. Now, after becoming a major, um, I decide that I don't want to reside anymore in India. And not only I don't want to reside, I don't want to continue with my Indian citizenship. So I want to get the citizenship of some Y or Z country. So there are some official compliances, there are some requirements, there are some uh, adherences which we need to take care of. So those compliances, those requirements, or those procedures are meant by naturalization of citizenship. That means that citizenship which I am taking officially through my own will and wish. There are other ways of acquiring citizenship is also there. Particularly in India, there are two ways through which there are two ways through which citizenship, there are 2 to 3 ways through which citizenship can be taken. One is by naturalization, another is by registration, one is of course at birth. These are some of the ways in which there is a very thin line distinction between naturalization and registration that I would be covering when I would be dealing with citizenship clauses in India. Now, it's a very brief historical perspective of how citizenship has come in context and how it has become contextual and contemporary at the present times also. There is no point in reading lines to lines. It's very clearly given, but I have already explained it in a bird eye view in my previous slide that the ancient civilizations, which were very civilized, which were very modern, which were considered to be one of those classic civilization where from we have also adopted something, many things in our modern city states also, like Rome, like Athens. These are some of the places where from we have taken so much in our modern concept also. So there were in these kind of city states or communities, there were something called citizenship was present, but of course by not by this name. This name was not there officially, but the concept was very much there. Now, at the end of this particular presentation, which gives the primary introduction to what is meant by citizenship, there are some of the practice questions which I offer for the students to go through. What is meant by citizenship? What are the various theories of citizenship? What are the various components of citizenship? And how citizenship is important for an individual? So these are some of the questions which we can get into, which we can introspect also. And as I say in all my slides, that these questions are not exhaustive. These are just sample questions, just very simple sample questions. Questions have no limitations. So these are some of the example questions which one can introspect while going through this entire slide. Thank you so much. Hope to see you in our next presentation again. Thank you so much.